Hello, welcome. Thank you for watching. Today I'm going to walk through a little to-do list, and I'm going to compare the difference between a React and just vanilla JavaScript using different methods or different ways to build the same functionality using just plain vanilla JavaScript. So right here, okay, you can see my screen. I have a to-do app, right? A little to-do list using React. Pretty basic, nothing crazy. We got a class component with some methods. So when I do a change, it adds, you submit, add the button, and then you can close them out. So the idea is I'm going to make this with a couple different ways. Thinking I'm going to use a modular pattern, and I'm going to use a object-oriented pattern. And then a third would be just no pattern at all. So you get the idea, pretty basic. You can't submit it, there has to be something in there, and then you can delete them. So I'm going to add all this code on GitHub on my account, and I will link it in my description. So we have the app. So here I built just the HTML building blocks, basically, of the app. So I have it running on a server on my port 5500. So nothing happens because I don't have it made yet. If I could delete that, right, and that should go away. Have a hot reload. I'm not going to be using an array. I'm just going to build and add a list item each time I click submit, and that'll be that. So let's just do a basic way. So just if I were to build some basic functions, I know that it's going to be a submit. So if I were to do a form submit, right, and there'll be an event. So I can just do an E for an event, and I know that when you input, do add, do an add item, and then you put in the input within that. So do that, and so you want to be able to put stuff in and submit. Pretty basic. And then also you want the delete functionality. So if I build a function with delete, that will also take in an event. Okay, so with that, you will do delete item, more descriptive. So with that, we have a function. All right, so here's my HTML. I have a class input box. So I need to be able to, I have to grab that, and when that happens, it's going to run a function. And that function is going to be form submit. So if I use const submit button, I guess, and it will be equal to document dot query selector. I have to use query selector because it is a object, or I'm sorry, it's a class. It's not an ID. Submit button, I believe it was that, right? So we do that, and then I also want to be able to do the same for delete button, which will be just delete, which could cause some issues later, but it's a small app. So if it was delete button equals document dot query selector, same thing. And if I do dot delete, that's it. So grabbing those, now just to do delete button, right? And then add event listener. So every time you click on that, it's going to be a click. It could be any type of event. It could be enter, it could be clicking the spacebar. But for right now, we just want to use the click. So when you hit the click button with the mouse, you will run delete item. And the same goes for the submit button. All right, this is just a basic. If we were just trying to figure this out and not go any further with any like architecture design. I'm going to do a form submit. I'm going to run that function up there, and that's that. So if I prettier. So if I were to click that, and I could add in, something's going to happen. So if I do that, first we want to do, it's an event. Let's do a prevent default, right? So now it shouldn't load every time. Okay, but it does. I know why. Actually, I don't know why. That should happen. That should have prevented that from happening. Submit button, form submit. Okay, but that's fine. So to const, I'm going to the input box. When you click submit, we are grabbing the info box. We're going to take the data or the information within the input box. So if we do input box equals document dot query selector, it's going to be dot, I think it was input box. Was it? Could it be that simple? Let's get these out of here. Yes, it is. And now we have the ability to grab that if you'd like. Form submit. So now, prevent default, that should stop it from loading. I know it wasn't doing that. There we go. So nothing, it doesn't load. Instead, it just crashes. Okay. Default. Yeah, form submit. Okay. Just do a little testing here. I don't know why that's not doing that. So if I were to do this and then e dot, right, I don't know if I bring this up, go to my console. Form submit, okay, input box, no. Okay, that should work. E dot event dot prevent default should prevent it from clicking. Submit button. What am I missing here? It's a bug, I suppose. Prevent submit button. Okay, I figured out the problem. Stinking bugs. I forgot to link the JavaScript to the HTML. So with the event or prevent default, right now the browser does not load. Without that, it loads every time you click it. So we need that. We don't want it to run every time. Right? Okay, so that happens. So now we can do simple if, right? We just want to make sure that there's something in that box, or in the input box. So if there's the input box is not input box, sorry, dot value does not equal blank, then what are we going to do with that? When it's not blank, we're hitting submit, and we're going to add it to this list. And that list is going to be a function called add item. So we want to add item. We want to use the input box dot value to be passed to the to the object. And then after that, we want to clear this input box, which is just you can do, I think is fine. If you do input box dot value equals just blank. There might be other ways. See, now it goes away. Nothing happens because there's nothing in this function yet. So now let's move down to the add item function. What is going to happen after you click submit? We want it to be added down here. Now this is just a unordered list, and this is a list item. So a new list item is going to be added to our UL. Now we need to make some variables. So we'll do a to-do list. So the UL, and that's going to be we'll say selector with that. I believe is the to-do list. Yes. Okay. That to-do list. And then we also want to grab the create. We want to create an item. So the list, and you want to make an item. So the document since it does not exist, we want to create it. So create element, and that's going to be an li. Got my Michigan mug. Okay, so it's going to make a li, and eventually we're going to have to append the ul with the li. Pretty basic stuff, but just walking through it, which is always good to say it out loud, or think out loud rather. And so we have a create item, and that will be our created item. That's a good name. So inner HTML of that item is going to be in that it's going to be a div, and in that div there's going to be another div, which is this little X, I guess, with some CSS. And so this whole item is the li. So that's why I'm going to do this. Make a div that way. And to make it easier, that'll be a class. We'll add a class name. And that class name is this. That's the class name. So that class name is delete. I already made one. Delete. And then do a little object, and that value is going to be the input that we pass in. But we want to we don't want that. We don't want to wrap that in there. We want to take it out. And it still does not work because we have to append it. yes. And also, there's not going to be anything in there. So we need to add like an X. Instead of adding an X, we'll do, I believe it's at times, we'll say, I believe. So we have the video. So now we want to append it to the UL. That append child added to the last element, and that will be create item. Oops. And there we go. So now we can add them. We just cannot delete them. So now there comes the delete item function. So if we go down to the delete item, what is going to be happening? So we're clicking this X, and we have to query select this X, and when it's clicked, it will remove this entire UL. You don't want to just remove the value because you'll just have empty spaces. So we can do, I can find out which is a delete class. And you can't just do a query selector actually, because if you do it on delete, these are the same class, and it'll only grab the first one each time. So we want to prevent that. So in order to know what we're clicking, we have to do a event listener or on the target. So what we are clicking. If we do an event.target, which is what we click with on the mouse or other events. So if the class name on the item in which we're clicking equals delete. Let's bring up the console just to show that. So if it is that, it's going to be, whoops, CLG, no, come on, there it is. It will be, and that is actually the E. So the E is what we're passing in from this object. Which is actually from down here. So this is the query selector. So taking back what I had said about not knowing which item is being selected, you need to listen to the target element. So if I do this, see there's a mouse event. Now if we do event.target, this should show us the whole li, or the div. So this is just the div within the li. And these are all, see how this is, it's only clicking to the first one. It only works for the first one because on a query selector, it looks through the document, and the first time it sees this class, that's the element you're going to get every time, as to why it only shows up for the first one. So in order to fix that, we are listening to the targets, and if it equals the delete, then we need to find the parent name. Well, actually, target class name. Okay, I figured out the issue. So back to my point, what was happening is I was adding these, and it would only select the first one. So one might think, oh, how am I supposed to add a new class each time I add an item? But instead of doing that, and instead of creating a variable to select that or each new item, which takes up a lot of memory and very time consuming and is not dynamic. Because of event delegation, what I actually meant to do, is select the UL. And if I select the UL, and if I add this, because of bubbling, it goes down the DOM and back up. So so what's happening is I'm clicking the unordered list, and because of event delegation, it goes to the next element, and it goes down to LI. And since the LI is the target under the unordered list, it is displayed. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. That's just one of the tools within JavaScript that is great, and it works tremendous for unordered lists and lists. So now I can click each one and they will register, and I don't have to add a new class name for each one. So if you see, this is just getting the div, and what I want to delete is this entire item, which is the parent node. So if it equals, if the class name is delete, which it is, I'm going to remove the parent node. I believe there's just a method on that. So yeah, there you go. That works, and I'm going to remove that. And this is a basic to-do list, just on vanilla JavaScript. 3 functions, have some variables and event listeners. And within this, we actually were able to use event delegation. So that is something nice to know. And this video is a little long, so I'm going to cut this short. In the next video, I'm going to use the module pattern, which is a little bit more complicated, but a lot easier to grasp, I think, in the long run. It's very similar to this, making functions, and you have an event listener, but also you use, there's some new there's some new functionality within this the module pattern. So you have closures, encapsulation, and immediately invoked functions, which is a possibility. You don't have to use that. So on the next video. Thanks for watching.